Hi everyone, it's Eleanor here from Hairdressers Journal. Welcome back to HJ Goes Live. Today we are joined by Andy Smith, Indola Global Ambassador and Creative Director at Billy Curry. Andy has been in the hairdressing industry for more than 20 years, and today he will be showing us how to master the asymmetry and undercut technique. So to start off this session, we're going to start with a quick presentation from Andy, and then he will then be doing a live demonstration of the technique as well. We'll also have time for a Q&A at the end. So if you've got any burning questions, please do send them through as we go, because we'll have a bit of time at the end. But without any further ado, I'll hand over to Andy and get his presentation ready to show. Thanks so much for joining us, Andy.
Amazing. Thank you, Eleanor. Hi, everybody. I hope we're well, and thank you for jumping on and joining me and Eleanor for this presentation. Now, obviously, we've got about, I think, sort of 40 minutes, so I've got a lot of work to get through. I'm actually going to be doing a live haircut. I've had to pre-cut quite a bit of it in order to be able to fit it all into the presentation. But what I thought first, before I actually do some hair, is just talk you through my presentation here, just to give you a gist of asymmetry and undercuts, where they come from and the history, etc. So let's move on to slide number 1. Okay, so basically, like it says here, today is all about disconnection, undercuts, and asymmetry. It's incorporating these techniques into creative, salon-friendly looks. So as you can see here, these are some of the looks that I've created, along with my mate Paddy, who does the colour. This is for Indola, and some of these techniques have all got internal undercuts and elements of asymmetry in them. However, you can see that they're really sort of kind of nice and commercial, and it's a way to just diffuse it. I think a lot of our clients, when we say asymmetry or undercut or disconnection, they think, you know, like it can be scary to a client. So I think what I'm trying to get across today is just to make you guys understand that it doesn't have to be too extreme. So we are going to look at some extremes, and then I'm going to show you how to relate them into a more sort of consumer-friendly haircut. So let's move on. Oh, next slide. It's frozen.
Oh, can you see my screen, Andy?
I can now. There you go.
Yeah, okay, is it on the right side?
Yeah, that's all good. Technology is always a winner, isn't it? Okay, so basically here, this is something from Vidal Sassoon. And again, you know, here you can see more visually the undercut, working with heavy sort of teardrop sections. So clever internal undercuts and asymmetry can be used to reduce weight, change shapes, and enable us to create the precise desired look. And I think this is key, because a lot of haircuts you see, you think they're just cut the way that you would cut them, but a lot of the time there's much more sort of depth to the haircut. We move on. Okay, so here, an inspiration of mine, Tyler Johnson, Leslie Jennison. I did work with these guys for a long time, for about 8 years, working through my career. So again, here, what a classic example of some like offset, strong fringes. There's some internal undercuts throughout that shape in order to get it to hug the head shape there. Again, if you didn't take any weight out from the underneath, everything would sit very, very round because of the curvature of the head. Okay, move on. Okay, so again, you know your history, do your research, have a look into how asymmetry and how graduation, undercuts, and disconnections have evolved. You know, so here you can see all the different elements of asymmetry from Vidal Sassoon here, which again is where I look back to in order to sort of move forwards. You know, I think you really need to know your history. And the next slide. Okay, icons of hair. Look, Twiggy here. Again, you know, heavy elements of asymmetry, but you know, Twiggy's hair is an iconic look, and actually something that I'm going to sort of be working the look today around, working with these sort of panels and veils of hair. So something that is as iconic as this. I think when people try and approach this sort of haircut, they sometimes struggle on where to start, what undercut to put in, how to place the sections. So that's what I'm really going to break down today. And the next slide, please. Okay, again, just some strong imagery now, just to sort of show you the strengths, and we can move on. The next slide. There you go. Okay, so here is some of today's inspirations. So it's showing you the actual collections of disconnections, asymmetry and undercuts that's put into everyday fashion today. So here you can see Birgit on the front cover of Vogue, amazing, working with little bits of graduation, disconnections, and one of Duffy's looks as well, working with a strong asymmetry. Okay, cool. So that was the presentation. Just to give you a little bit of sort of insight to where this has all come from. So now we're going to start doing some hair. Now, let me just make a point. I've had to do quite a lot of work, so I wasn't able in the 30 minutes to be able to do the full haircut all the way through. So I've had to pre-cut quite a lot of it. But I'm going to put the videos of how I've done the pre-haircut on my Instagram handle, which is AndySmith_stylist. So if you jump on there later, the videos will be on and you'll be able to see exactly how I sort of worked through up to this point. Okay, so let's get cracking. We've got lots to get through. So let me just lift you up. Okay, can we all see this? Okay. So guys, so the breakdown of the haircut. Now, you know, I think it's important to keep everything kind of easy, kind of simple to work with. I try not to overcomplicate anything that I'm doing. I think, you know, if you understand hair and you understand how things work, it shouldn't be too overcomplicated. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just spin her around so that you can see the full section. So I'll probably take her off here. Okay, so starting with a section. Oh, this is weird because I'm like left to right, right to left. Starting with a section in the top. This works right the way down into a point at the back. Now you have to decide where your parting is going to be. Is it going to be this way or is it going to be this way? In my instance, we're going from here to here. Okay, so you need to have just a small amount of hair to hang over where your parting is on this side. So that's your first section. Your next area is through the side. So you're going to subsection the hair halfway through. And then we're going to work into a deep V into the back. And then on this side, we've just taken another subsection here, which you'll see what I'm going to do with later on. Okay, so starting the haircut, I started from the back corner. And like I said, I am going to have this video up so you'll be able to see it. So I started from the back. This was sectioned forwards. So we actually subsectioned this sort of halfway from the top of the ear. I started in the back corner here and we elevated the hair at 45 degrees and we've basically worked all the way up into this side, right the way across. And then we've done exactly the same on the other side, working with diagonal back sections all the way across, creating a quite flat shape. Now it's important when you're working on undercuts that you don't want to be building too much graduation here, okay? So if you build up too much graduation, you've got to remember that this hair, when it comes over the top, is going to be very, very swollen. Now, the idea here is to actually flatten the head shapes. Undercuts are great for flattening head shapes. So you've got to have the confidence to make sure that underneath here, this is really flat, okay? So we work that all the way through the back. after you've done that through the back, you then get to this this area here. Now, I've actually taken that right the way up. So this is actually going to be undercut right the way up so that this hair will fall over and it won't be too round, because it's the roundness that makes the hair feel very dated. Okay, we're trying to keep it looking fresh, modern and cool, and to create like a bit of air in the hair. So undercuts are really, really cool to do that. So what I did when I was moving through this side is, as I reached this point, I then just subsectioned here and then worked with a vertical elevation and squared that off. Okay, so everything then is square. I then moved into my top section here and again just took off the corner. Okay, so yes, to a client it might feel quite, oh, you know, there's quite a lot of hair coming off, but at the same time you don't need that hair really when you're doing these type of shapes. Okay, so everything through the back flattened off, working in diagonals, verticals through the side, and then the same on this side, worked with a vertical undercut here. Now this, by putting the two undercuts on both sides, you're actually creating a balance within the haircut. Okay, so even though you've got asymmetry and you've got panels of disconnection, it's important that you build up the foundation shape so you can really see the symmetry here and the symmetry here with the shape. If you don't put this little bit of undercut in this side, you're going to find that when the hair drops, it becomes very, very heavy on the one side, and even clients will feel that. They'll feel like the weight is too much on that side. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to pre-cut for you, or not pre-cut, I'm going to cut for you. Just lift that up a little bit. I'm going to cut for you now these three sections, and then I've already got a haircut that I have done exactly this on to that point, and I've dried it so it's all ready to go. So you guys aren't going to have to watch me blow dry, because I don't think that's what we're here for. Okay, so it's important to keep your sections really clean when you're doing this type of haircut, because if you don't, you may get lost. So everything's got to be sectioned and organized so that you can move through it properly. Organization and prep is the key. Okay, so now this section here is going to be, so my parting is going to be here. There's going to be a small amount of hair that hangs over this area. Now, if I undercut all of this that short, then the veil that's going to hang over is going to be so small that it will probably go see-through, and people may find that it's a bit too severe. So a little tip here is to, yes, still undercut this area on the underneath, but with this bit, I'm going to undercut it from the top and work with over direction to maintain a little bit of length that sits over here. Okay, so this is how we do it. Like I say, guys, I know this is quite a lot, and that's why I'm going to upload the haircut afterwards. I've already videoed everything, and also at the end we've got a Q&A, so if you guys want to ask any questions. Okay, so we're going to start using a horizontal section into here. Now remember, I've already undercut the underneath, but this bit here, I want to take the weight out, but I want to work with over direction. So we're going to sound from the back. We're going to work with a nice short length and a slight curvature on the head shape. Okay, so it looks again quite dramatic. However, it's actually, it's fine. Okay, so elevating everything up. Okay, so you can see that. So we'll then comb that down. And then move on to our next section. And again, just elevate into your previous section, working with over direction. And just continuing all the way through. So this last section now, elevate that up. Just a few strands. You can either club cut this or you can point cut it. The only reason I'm point cutting it is because there's so much hair. It's actually quite difficult to club cut it. So you can see now what happens there is that. Can you see now? So I've undercut here and undercut here. But what I've done by using that over direction on this side is allowed like a little bit of length to sort of build up. So actually, when that then sits down, it's a lot softer than what it would have been if I would have taken all of that length off, okay? I will just remove any excess hair just sitting around the eye, just to open that up and keep that looking nice, okay? This area here, we can come to that afterwards. So it's all about the two undercuts internally. Now we're going to move on to the back. So the back here again is that diamond section, okay, with a chunk just coming out of it in the top. Okay, so let's take this down. Okay, so when I work with sort of connecting everything through, I think it's quite important to one, keep everything clean, like I said, and keep it nice and damp. And two, what I tend to try and work with is the layers first. So I will layer the hair first, and then we can deal with the length afterwards, okay? So, you know, all of this is sitting over the top of our undercut. So what I'm going to do is start with a central section, okay? Central section, we're going to elevate the hair straight up because I still want to keep an overhang at the back. So we're going to pull this straight up, okay, and I'm going to square that off. Okay, that's going to remove a lot of the weight, but it's still going to keep enough length for me to sit over the top. Now, it's up to you how long you want to keep this or how short. Again, it all depends on your client. It depends on, you know, what exact look you want. So I'm going to sit it into about here for now. Okay, keeping control. Okay, so everything's up and out. So what that then does, as you can see, is just starts to put this layer into the back, which sits around the occipital bone, but allows a bit of length just to drop as we go, okay? So what I'm going to do now is, again, working with another vertical section. I can bring all of that middle in as my guide. And then again, now it's up to you whether you wanted to over direct it, or as long as you follow your guideline, you can follow it around the head shape. Okay, let's just get this in. Trying to explain it clearly. I hope you guys are with me. Obviously, I'm also restricted on time, so I do need to move through. So just on my last section there, in that half, elevate up, Keep everything nice and square. Let's have a look. Okay, so it just removes all of that internal weight and allows it to start dropping into the underneath. Okay, so I'm going to do exactly the same on the other side, working with vertical sections. I've now got a guide from the middle, so we can elevate that up. You can clearly see my guide there, and we can just chip into that. Okay, keep control of your elevation, making sure that you're pulling the hair straight up. If you pull it straight up, you're basically going to eliminate any lines. Okay, if you cut the hair down here, you're going to start putting elements of graduation into the hair. So you might find this a bit too heavy. So it's better to sort of work internally to layer the hair, and then we can work on the outline afterwards. Okay. Okay, so there's my back complete with the layers. Now, obviously, if you look at it, it's still far too long. You know, unless you want this sort of texture hanging over, I think it's important that, you know, you sort of take away some of this length now. So I'm just going to freehand through there. Again, you know, this is very, very personal to the sort of length that you want to go to. So I'm just removing some of that length just with the tips of the scissors, and then all of a sudden, can you see, it starts to just sit into the underneath, so you can't even see it. It's seamless, but what it's done is stopped it from being so round. Okay, it's just flattened it in, giving it a slightly cooler shape. Okay, so let's quickly move into the top. The top's pretty straightforward. We're going to work from the side where we've done our double undercut. We're going to start from this side. We're going to use small diagonal sections, and we're going to work with elevation again, putting in our layering before we do anything else. Now, again, you need to think about where you want this hair to fall, what kind of length you want it to run at. Okay, just get a little bit dry. So again, you know, just because I choose the length I'm choosing now doesn't necessarily mean that you have to use that exact length. So working with elevation, I'm now going to round that through. Okay. And just have a look at it. Okay, always go a little bit longer to start with, you know, just so that you don't overdo it. If you go too short, you can't put it back on, right? So it's always better to have a little bit more length maybe, and then afterwards we can refine that. Okay, so I'm going to keep it there for now. Like I say, I'm just using this really to show you how I achieved my look. Okay, so now everything's I've created a guide, so I've got a guideline. Everything's gonna come back into that guide, working with asymmetry. Okay, so we're gonna work with over direction. I'm gonna use my guide. Can you see how I'm pulling everything over to this side? Because I want the hair to move this way. Okay, so if you elevate it up here, it will flow the opposite way. And you're also going to build length. Okay, so moving through to my next section. So you can pretty much get the gist of what's happening. Okay, still keeping that over direction and just sitting on the top of my guide and just point cut that in. Now I want the top to be reasonably sort of shattered, so I'm going to use the tips of the scissors. So just 2 more sections here. Put everything up and across. And my last section. Everything up. I like to keep it all in my hand at the same time. I've got quite big hands, so I do find it probably a bit easier, but as long as you can keep it clean and understand what's going on, when you're working with over direction and asymmetry, I find it sometimes good to keep that guide in your hand. Okay. Now remember, this is just the layering of the hair, so it's not actually going to cut so much your desired length in. Okay. So let's have a look. I remember she's going to be worn over this side. Okay, so now what we need to do is put our outlines in. So we're going to now work diagonal forwards through here and pull up our outlines. Now, the heavier you want the line, the lower you need to hold this. Okay, so when you're putting in your line here, if you want it to be quite heavy and quite wedgy, you can keep this quite low. If you want it to be a bit softer, then you work with a higher elevation. Okay, I want it to be reasonably sort of chunky, and just using the tips of the scissors just to connect that in. Okay, again, diagonal forward section, keeping control, making sure you're following your guide, which is there. And just removing any excess length that you may need. Like I say, I'm leaving this one slightly longer just so that you can see what's happening. So pull all of that over, and again, keep control of your elevation here, and pull everything. Okay, so then that just starts to put your outline in. Okay, so then same on the other side. Come into the hair, diagonal forward section, and then we can cut. Diagonal forward section here, working with that elevation, and we can just put our desired length into there. And just pull everything over. You won't have much hair now, so okay. Okay, so you can see now that's pretty much the basic sort of area of the haircut done. Working with our outlines, we've got our undercuts through here at the back. We've got undercuts through this side here, which obviously will be covered once we move the hair over. Okay, so that's pretty much the sort of foundation of the haircut. So let's move on to one that I've already done. Okay. So here you can see now, let's just have a look through. Now, I haven't quite finished this. I've left a little bit for us to do, but you can see how the double undercut here. Yeah. So you can see you've got your undercut, plus you've got your veil that sits over, and then we also have that small veil from the top, which hangs over there. I've still left my disconnection through the back, as you can see. Into my other side, again, we've got our undercut just shining through, and then I've still got quite a bit of length just sort of breaking into this front here. So now what I need to do is a little bit of freehand work. So I'm just going to start from the back and start to remove a little bit more of this length. Okay, so I'm going to work with, again, the wide tooth of my comb. I'm going to pick up my my sort of overhang here, and just with some elevation, I'm just going to break in to that shape. Okay, this is really just starting to just pull everything together a little bit more, because again, I don't want it to be too sort of harsh or over the top. So by pulling these up, it sort of starts to just fuse everything together. So the client doesn't even really know that they've got a an undercut or a disconnection. They actually just feel like their hair is going to do what they want it to do. Okay. And in that last little corner there, elevate, and then just break into there. Really, really loose. Obviously, the looser it is, the more it fuses into the back. Okay, can you guys see that? Yeah, so it's a really nice, look, you still get this nice shape here. You can either really flatten this so that it almost removes all of that weight, or you can just pull this up a little bit and create a little bit more texture through that crown. Okay, so I'm just going to strengthen my outlines around the ear. So again, just working with a little bit of elevation, the wide tooth of my comb, and just softening that length into my undercut. Just use the tips of my scissors there, just to strengthen that a little bit. Okay, and this is cute as well because she can also tuck this behind if she wants. So, and then you can really sort of show this texture off with some styling products afterwards, if you like. Okay, so moving on to this side now. Again, we've got our undercut, which is revealed through here. I just need to work on this area just to balance that out a little bit. So just take a couple of subsections. Now I'm going to keep the hair pulled to where I want it to fall. So there's no point in cutting this here. If you pull it down and cut it, then obviously when you push it across, it's not quite going to sit the way you want it. You've already got these really nice layers in there from our internal shape. So now it's all about pulling the hair across. Okay, and then we can just break this weight through there. Okay, it's nice to keep it a little bit longer because again, she might want to be able to tuck that behind the ear. And it's nice to have an element of strength with an element of soft as well. Okay, so take that last section, pull that across. And just chip in. Chip into there. Okay, so you can see from the front now, she's looking pretty cool, very Twiggy-esque. Okay, so just stand back from your work, have a little look at it, just refine any edges that you need to. Still a little bit heavy just in this tip here for me. Just soften that out a little bit. There you go. Have a look through the back. Just checking my line on the edge here. And there you have it. So super nice, very sort of Twiggy inspired vibe. Cute little haircut. Let me know if you guys like it. I think it, you know, it can be worn in different ways. It can be pushed over this side as well. If you look, see the way that then really shows off this undercut here. So this is all short and exposed, so you can really show that area off as well. If you want to wear it on the other side. So again, you know, it's a cool haircut, but look at it. I mean, clients would love this type of thing. You know, you can also slick it back, you can move it around, you can add more texture to it. I'm just going to add a little bit of the hairspray. I'll keep it this side. This is the sort of slightly more cooler vibe. It's just using a little bit of the Indola shimmer spray just to weigh it down, and then I'm going to put a little bit of hairspray just over the top. And then we'll do a 360, and then I've actually pre-done another 3 heads, which I'll quickly show you, and then we can do some questions if anyone has got any. So let's have a look around her. Okay, so nice working with angles, working with undercuts, working with flatness. You know, again, look at this. Yeah, all you need to do is push the hair and you get this really awesome texture. So you could wear this really sort of messy as well. All of the undercut sits in really nice. It's all, oh, let me get over here. It's all fused into the back. Okay, really soft. No one would know that she's had a really strong undercut. And then again, just working with this double undercut here with a slight veil, working with a strong graphic line, but still having enough softness there for it not to be too aggressive. Okay, so I think the key is, yes, there's a lot of elements of undercuts and things going around, but you've got to do things that people want. And for me, clients that are going back into the salon would love this type of thing. Okay, cool. So like I say, the haircut will be uploaded on my Instagram, Andy Smith _stylist. Let me just show you a couple of other options. So this here is another haircut that I've done. Again, working with very graphic shapes, graphic lines. I've put like an offset graduation in the underneath here, so it's shifted my graduation, and then you've got an overhang of a veil on the top there, which again just makes it look a little bit more sort of textured again. So, you know, asymmetry, the fringe elements, they can be really minor and subtle, but again, you know, they're such great haircuts to do. And especially for us, when we get back to our clients in the salon, we can introduce elements of asymmetry. This is another one. Okay, this is basically a short haircut, and what I've done is worked in basically elements of undercuts and disconnection. So I've taken like a V shape through here. I've taken off the sides just here, but left all of the back behind it. And then I've worked in 2 short channels into the back, and then done the same on the other side. So again, it's working with channels, create this super cool texture. So it's a way of someone that's got short hair, you can just jazz it up a little bit, and give them something different. So the last one is much more sort of commercial. again, you know, a nice, for those girls that have got like lobs and things like that, this is a great little haircut. Working, this has got actually, if you look under here, can you see all of this has been undercut short through the underneath. So again, just putting these undercuts in and working with shapes and asymmetric fringes. Oh, it's the other way, that way. I'm in the mirror, so it's hard. Gives you this really, really cool element to jazzing up your haircuts. Okay, guys, so that was pretty much it. I hope you guys understood everything and I was clear. Let me sit back down. But yeah, it was really, I think it's really just about using elements of technique that we all understand, taking them to our clientele, and just introducing them slowly. You know, just use little hints of them, little elements, whether it just be a little bit of asymmetry in the fringe, whether it just be a slight undercut somewhere, just to remove a bit of excess weight. It doesn't always have to be really strong, really harsh, that's only going to suit one professional model behind the camera. You know, you can use elements of this by understanding your craft and then introduce it into your salon life.
Amazing. Andy, thank you so much for showing us your technique. We've had loads of comments saying how useful that was and how beautiful the result was as well. So thank you. We're now going to move on to some questions. So we've had a few questions about what scissors did you use for this?
Okay, so the scissors that I use, I use either Keisho or Zen Master. These are Zen Master. Keishos are a little bit too expensive to use on wigs or on dolls' heads because the hair texture is slightly different. But these were a lovely pair of scissors. I use like a 5.5-inch blade. I don't tend to go too big because I find that most of my work is more precision cutting and control. So yeah, that's the blades I used.
Awesome. And we've had another question from someone watching who wants to know, how often would a client need to come into the salon to maintain this sort of style?
Well, do you know, the great thing about these sort of haircuts is they're so easy to find, you know, the sections. So as soon as you like do this, you know, you can basically, not that you're going to do this with a client, but what I mean is you can lift up the hair and resection it exactly how you did it before. So maintenance wise, you know, I would normally do every 6 weeks for a client of that type of hair texture. However, because, you know, you've removed so much internal weight, they actually grow out really, really nice as well. You know, you get this really, really cool texture as they grow. But to sit on top of it, I'd say every 6 weeks.
Awesome.
Sorry, Eleanor, just before you say, I think the key here is that a lot of people will see a haircut that's got asymmetry or something, and they will just thin it out with thinner scissors, or they will, you know, texturize it or just chop into it in one side. I think if you're clever with the breakdown of the haircut and approach it in the right way, you remove all the weight that you need, and then also you make it easy for the client to be able to come back and you can replicate it. If you've just visually done it, sometimes you get a little bit lost and struggle to recreate what you recreated. So I think technique is key. But 6 weeks.
Every 6 weeks. Awesome. And how would this technique work if the client wanted a clipper cut?
Okay, so all of the hair that I cut on the underneath, which you guys didn't see, unfortunately, but please check it out because I will upload it on my Instagram page. You could, if you wanted to, section the haircut off and use the clippers in a grade 4 or 5 all the way through the underneath to remove all of that weight, which would make it much quicker and easier. Personally, I tend to like to use the scissors because I find that you can control the shape a lot better on someone's scalp. Sometimes the clippers can make it slightly rigid. However, they're a great way to remove weight really, really quickly. So if you're in a salon, maybe you don't have that much time, or you're not as confident in the technique, then yeah, feel free, get the clippers out, section it off, get it all perfect, clipper it away down to a 4. You can personalize it with your scissor over comb. And yeah, so you could use the clippers. Just be careful with the length and make sure the guard doesn't fall off.
Amazing, Andy. Thank you so much. I think that's all we have time for today, but thank you everyone who joined us, and thanks so much, Andy, for a great live. It's been a pleasure.
No, it's been amazing. Thank you everybody for jumping in, and I really hope that you guys can take something from what you've seen, and you're feeling a little bit inspired. So stay safe, everybody, and yeah, check out my Instagram later on and I'll show you the full video. But thanks, Eleanor, you've been a great host.
Oh, thank you very much, Andy. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone.
Bye.